The deep space monitoring station drifted in silence, suspended in the void like a forgotten relic. No ships passed through this sector. No signals ever came. Nothing changed. For over 300 cycles, the station had watched the same stretch of empty space, recording asteroid drift, solar flares, and the distant birth of stars that no one would ever visit. It was the quietest assignment in the entire Galactic Council fleet, and everyone on board hated it. Captain Zir walked slowly through the main control room, his forearms folded neatly behind his back. His blue skin reflected the dim glow of the station consoles as he inspected each post with practiced precision. Around him, a crew of mixed species worked in dull routine. No urgency, no tension, just repetition. Another thrilling day in the middle of nowhere, Catherine muttered from the long-range sensor station, her insect-like eyes flickering as she adjusted the same settings she had already checked a dozen times. Careful, another officer replied dryly. You might miss the exciting movement of cosmic dust. A few quiet clicks of amusement echoed across the room. Zay didn't smile. This wasn't what he had imagined when he joined the Council fleet. The Galactic Council ruled thousands of worlds. Entire civilizations bowed to its authority. It was the greatest power the galaxy had ever known. And yet, here he was, watching nothing, waiting for nothing, in a sector officially labeled, devoid of intelligent life. Zay paused near the central display, staring into the endless blackness beyond the reinforced glass. Out there was silence. Complete, absolute, no civilizations, no threats, no history, just emptiness stretching infinitely in every direction. The Council had explored most of the known galaxy. Every advanced species had already been catalogued, contacted, and, eventually, brought under Council authority. There were no surprises left. At least, that's what everyone believed. Behind him, the steady hum of the station systems continued without interruption. Sensor scanned, computers logged, time passed, predictable, safe, controlled, and that was a problem, because in a universe this vast, true silence wasn't natural. It was a warning, and none of them had realized it yet. The silence broke without warning. "Sir." The voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the control room like a blade. Captain Zir turned slowly. "Report." Velna, the young communications officer, was frozen at his station. His tentacles hovered above the console, trembling slightly. "I'm picking up something strange." A few heads turned, not with urgency, but curiosity. Strange usually meant a sensor glitch, maybe a radiation echo. Nothing worth attention. Zir stepped closer. Define strange. Velna swallowed. "Energy readings, sir, but they don't match anything in our database." That got everyone's attention. Catherine's chair rotated sharply. Her compound eyes locked onto her screen as her claws began moving rapidly across the controls. "Let me see that feed." Data streams flooded the central display. Waveforms, frequencies, energy spikes. And then, Catherine stopped. "That's not possible." Zir's voice hardened. "Explain." Her voice dropped slightly, all trace of boredom gone. "The pattern, it's too precise." She adjusted the filters again, reran the scan. Same result. It's controlled. A quiet tension spread through the room. "Artificial." Zir asked. Catherine didn't answer immediately. Instead, she zoomed in on the signal, isolating its core structure. The readings sharpened, stabilizing into something even more disturbing. "Yes." Now the room went completely still. For 300 cycles, this sector had been empty. No life, no ships, no signals. And now, something was out there. Zir stepped closer to the display, studying the data carefully. The energy signature wasn't just unusual. It was enormous. "How far?" he asked. Catherine ran a rapid calculation. Approximately 12 light hours away. A pause. Then, enclosing. The words landed heavy. Something unknown. Something artificial. And it was moving directly toward Council space. Zir felt a slow, unfamiliar tension settle in his chest. Could it be a natural phenomenon? One of the officers asked quietly. Some kind of stellar anomaly? Catherine shook her head immediately. No, Natural signals don't behave like this. She highlighted the waveform again. See the repetition? The symmetry? This is engineered. Velna leaned back slightly, his voice tightening. The energy output alone, it's off our scales. I've never seen anything like it. Zaid didn't respond. He was staring at the numbers, running the implications. The Council had encountered thousands of species across the galaxy. Most of them were primitive when first discovered. Small ships, weak signals, limited reach. This was different. This wasn't a developing civilization. This was something advanced, very advanced, and it was heading straight toward them. Behind him, the quiet hum of the station suddenly felt louder, heavier, like the entire structure had become aware of something approaching, something that didn't belong. Zir straightened. Keep scanning, he ordered. I want continuous updates on that signal. Yes, so. Catherine's claws moved faster now, pulling deeper data, refining the readings. But as the numbers stabilized, her posture stiffened. So. Zay didn't look away from the display. What is it? Her voice came out slower this time. The signal isn't just strong. A pause. It's increasing. Zay's eyes narrowed slightly. How fast? Catherine hesitated, then answered, faster than it should be. The numbers kept climbing. Faster. Higher. Wrong. Catherine rear-ended the scan for the third time, her movement sharp now, precise, no longer routine. Same result. She didn't like that. Sir, I'm refining the mass readings. Zay folded his arms behind his back again, but this time it wasn't calm, it was restraint. Do it. The control room had gone completely silent. No one joked anymore. No one moved unless necessary. All eyes were locked on the main display. Catherine adjusted the sensor resolution, pushing the system beyond standard limits. The screen flickered as deeper layers of data came into focus. Structure, density, shape, and then she froze. No. Zir stepped closer. Report. Catherine didn't respond immediately. Her eyes remained fixed on the screen. That can't be correct. Zir's tone sharpened. Say it. A long pause. Then, the object is artificial. No one reacted, because they already knew. But what came next? That changed everything. Catherine slowly turned her head toward him. Estimated length. She hesitated. Zir felt something tighten in his chest. Continue. Over 15 kilometers. Silence. Absolute silence. For a moment, it felt like the entire station had stopped breathing. 15 kilometers. That wasn't a ship. That was a moving fortress. The largest Council dreadnought is barely 3 kilometers, one officer whispered. Check again. Zay ordered immediately. Catherine already was. Scan. Recalibrate. Scan again. Same result. Every time. Confirmed, she said quietly. 15.2 kilometers. High-density structure. Reinforced hull, multiple layers. Her voice dropped further. It's not just big. She zoomed in on the surface mapping. It's built for war. The display shifted, highlighting dozens, no, hundreds of surface anomalies. Weapon ports. Everywhere. Velna leaned forward, his voice unsteady. I'm detecting energy concentrations across the hull. Zay didn't want to ask, but he did. How many? Velna's tentacles trembled slightly as he scanned. I can't count them all. A beat. There are too many. The room went cold. This wasn't first contact. This wasn't exploration. This wasn't a lost vessel. This was a warship. And not just any warship. Something far beyond anything the Council had ever seen. Zir stared at the display, his thoughts racing now. Every known species followed the same pattern. Slow development. Limited expansion. Small, fragile ships. Even the most advanced civilizations needed time to grow into power. But this skipped every step. This was the end result. Fully realized, fully armed, fully operational, and it was heading straight toward them. Distance update, he asked. Catherine checked again. Now 10 light hours. Closer, faster, too fast. Zir exhaled slowly, forcing control back into his voice. Velocity. Catherine hesitated again. So, it's not just fast. Another pause. It's accelerating. That hit harder than anything else, because acceleration meant intent. It wasn't drifting. It wasn't passing through. It was coming, on purpose. Velna suddenly looked up from his console, panic creeping into his voice. Sir, I'm detecting something else. Zee turned sharply. What now? The young officer swallowed. Weapon systems. A long silence followed. Zee's voice dropped to a near whisper. Active. Velna nodded slowly. Charging. That was it. No more doubt. No more theories. No more unknown phenomenon. This was a threat. A massive, heavily armed, rapidly approaching threat. And for the first time since arriving in this dead sector, Captain Zee realized something he had never considered before. They weren't alone, and whatever was out there was far more powerful than anything they had ever faced. No one spoke. The data was clear. The threat was undeniable. And yet, no one moved to sound the alarm. Captain Zee stood motionless, staring at the massive shape forming on the display. 15 kilometers. Hundreds of weapons. Accelerating. Every instinct told him this was beyond protocol. But something else pushed back. Pride. The Galactic Council had ruled for over 10,000 years. No species had ever challenged them and survived. Not one. Zee straightened slightly, his voice regaining its authority. We are jumping to conclusions. Catherine looked up sharply. So, with respect, those readings could still be incomplete. Zee cut in. The room tensed. He turned to face the crew, calm, controlled. We have encountered unknown signatures before. Rare phenomena. Unclassified energy patterns. But not like this, Velna said quietly. Zee ignored him. We will not escalate the situation based on uncertainty. There it was. The decision. Catherine hesitated, then spoke carefully. So, we should inform Council Command. A pause. That was a correct move. Protocol demanded it. Immediate report. Request reinforcements. Full diplomatic preparation. Everything about the situation required it. Zee knew that. He also knew what it would mean. Loss of control. Loss of command. And worst of all, admitting he couldn't handle it. He shook his head. Not yet. Silence hit harder than before. So, Catherine pressed. We gather more data first, Zee said firmly. I won't trigger a system-wide alert over what could still be a sense anomaly. Catherine stared at him. She knew it wasn't an anomaly. Everyone did. But no one challenged him further. Because this wasn't about data anymore. This was about authority. Zee turned back to the display, watching the signal grow stronger. Prepare a response unit. That snapped everyone back into motion. Velna blinked. A response unit. So? Yes. Zee clasped his hand behind his back again, his voice steady. Standard first contact formation. The words felt almost absurd in the air. First contact? With that? So, Catherine said slowly, choosing her words carefully, that vessel is armed beyond anything we've seen. This may not be a diplomatic situation. Zee finally turned to face her. His expression was firm, controlled, unyielding. The Council does not meet new species with fear. A pause. We meet them with authority. That settled it. Orders were orders, even if they were wrong. Within minutes, commands were transmitted across the sector, and within hours, they arrived. 12 Council cruisers, sleek, powerful, battle-tested, each one nearly 2 kilometers long, each one capable of overwhelming most threats in known space. They formed up around the station, engines glowing softly against the darkness. For a moment, confidence returned. The crew watched as the fleet aligned into formation, perfectly coordinated, flawlessly executed. This was the power of the Council. This was what had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Zee felt it too, that familiar sense of superiority, that belief that no matter how strange, how large, how unknown, nothing could truly challenge them. 12 ships, he said quietly. That's more than enough. No one replied, because deep down, they weren't so sure anymore. Catherine glanced back at her sensor readings one more time. The object was closer now, much closer. Its energy output still rising, its weapons still charging, and its course, unchanged, straight toward them. She felt a cold weight settle in her chest. This wasn't a first contact mission. This was a mistake. A terrible, irreversible mistake. And they had just committed to it. Visual contact in 3, 2, 1. The main display flickered. For a split second, nothing. Just darkness. Then, something moved. Not fast, not dramatic, just slowly emerging from the void. At first, it looked like a shadow, a distortion against the stars. Then the sensors adjusted, and the truth came into focus. No one spoke, because no one knew what to say. It wasn't just large. It was overwhelming. The ship didn't appear in space. It dominated it. A massive structure of dark metal stretched across the screen, its surface layered with thick armor plating that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Angular, brutal, built without elegance, only purpose. War. Catherine's voice came out barely above a whisper. That's not a ship. She swallowed. It's a fortress. The scale was impossible to process. The nearby council cruisers, once impressive, once powerful, now looked small, insignificant. Like insects orbiting something far beyond them. Magnify, they ordered quietly. The image zoomed in, details sharpened, and somehow, that made it worse. Weapon ports covered the entire hull. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. Each one large enough to house cannons that could level cities. Always. Energy signatures pulsed beneath the armor. Steady, controlled, terrifyingly stable. This wasn't experimental. This wasn't improvised. This was perfected. Shields active, Vellner reported, his voice tight. And so... They didn't look away. What? They are stronger than anything we've recorded. Of course they were. They stared at the structure, his confidence cracking for the first time. Every known species built ships for multiple purposes. Exploration, trade, defense. This was different. There was no balance, no compromise. Every line, every surface, every system. Designed for one thing, combat. It doesn't make sense, one of the officers muttered. Who builds something like that just for first contact? No one answered, because the answer was becoming clear. This wasn't built for first contact. It was built for domination. Catherine adjusted the visual feed again, isolating specific sections of the hull. Sir, I'm detecting layered armor plating, multiple redundancies, internal energy cycling systems. She paused. Even if we hit it, I don't think we could damage it. That landed hard, because now, they weren't just outmatched in scale. They might be outmatched in power. Zia finally stepped forward, closer to the display, closer to the truth. This changes nothing, he said, though his voice had lost some of its edge. We proceed as planned. No one challenged him, but no one believed him either. On the screen, the massive warship continued its steady approach, unhurried, unstoppable, as if the 12 council cruisers in its path didn't matter at all. And maybe they didn't. A low hum filled the control room as sensor systems struggled to keep up with the ship's energy output. Catherine's eyes narrowed. Sir. They didn't respond immediately. I'm picking up something new. A pause. Her voice dropped. The weapons. They finally toned slightly. What about them? She looked at him, and for the first time, there was fear. They are not just active. A beat. They are charging faster. Zay's gaze snapped back to the screen. The massive ship loomed closer now. Silent, cold, prepared. And in that moment, for the first time since the signal appeared, the illusion shattered completely. This wasn't a situation under control. This wasn't a routine encounter. This wasn't something the council had faced before. This was something new, something dangerous, something far beyond them, and it was about to arrive. The bridge of the UES Ragnarok was quiet, not empty, not relaxed, but controlled. Every station was active, every system online, every crew member focused. And yet, no panic, no urgency, no fear, Captain Marcus Chen stood at the center of the bridge, his hands resting calmly behind his back as he studied the tactical display. 12 ships, arranged in a defensive formation, positioned to intercept. He had expected that. Confirm contact, he said. Lieutenant Sarah Kim nodded from the sensor station, her fingers moving smoothly across the interface. Confirmed, sir. 12 distinct vessels, approximate length, 2 kilometers each. Energy signatures consistent with advanced military craft. She paused, analyzing deeper. They formed a containment pattern. Looks like they are trying to surround us. Chen nodded slightly. Predictable. Any targeting locks? Negative. Rodriguez replied from tactical. Weapons are active, but they're not locked yet. Chen allowed himself a small breath. So, not immediately hostile, but close. Very close. He stepped toward the main display. The alien ships appeared as small, sharp silhouettes against the vastness of space. Efficient, coordinated, professional, but small, very small, compared to them. 6 months, Chen said quietly. No one asked what he meant. They all knew. 6 months of deep space travel. 6 months of silence. 6 months of moving toward the unknown. And now, they had found it. First contact, Kim said softly. Chen nodded. Yes. But something about it felt wrong. Not the ships, not the formation, the behavior. They're approaching too aggressively, Rodriguez noted. This isn't a welcoming formation. It's an interception grid. Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. Agreed. He looked back at the display. 12 ships, positioned like they expected control, like they expected obedience. That was the first mistake. Incoming transmission. Park announced from communications. Multiple frequencies. Looks like a universal translation attempt. Chen's expression didn't change. They came prepared to talk. Another pause. Or to command. Can we decode it? He asked. Already done, Park replied. It's clean. Very sophisticated system. Chen gave a small nod. Put it through. The main display shifted. The stars disappeared, replaced by the interior of an alien command deck. At the center stood a blue-skinned figure with 4 arms, posture rigid, expression controlled. Authority, military, leader, greetings, unknown vessel. The alien said. The translation came through smoothly, almost perfectly. I am Captain Z of the Galactic Council Fleet. Chen studied him for a moment. Calm, observant, measuring. You are entering council-controlled space without authorization. Zir continued. Identify yourselves and prepare for inspection. There it was. Not curiosity. Not diplomacy. Control. Chen stepped forward into view. Greetings, Captain Zir, he said evenly. I am Captain Marcus Chen of the United O Ship Ragnarok. A brief pause. We come in peace, seeking contact with other intelligent species. Silence followed. Zir's expression shifted slightly, just enough to show he was processing something unexpected. Probably the size. Probably the confidence. Your vessel, Zir said slowly, is unusually large for a first contact mission. Chen didn't hesitate. We prefer to be prepared. Simple, honest, unapologetic. Another pause. Zir's tone changed. Subtly, but clearly. As representatives of the Galactic Council, we welcome you, he said. However, your vessel must submit to inspection before proceeding further. There it was again, not a request, a command. Chen felt a quiet warning settle in his mind. This wasn't going to be simple. I appreciate the welcome, he replied calmly, but I'm afraid that won't be possible. The bridge remained silent. Behind him, no one moved, no one spoke, because they all understood what that meant. Zir's eyes narrowed slightly. You misunderstand, he said. This is not optional. Chen held his gaze. Then we have a problem. The air on the bridge didn't change, but the atmosphere did. Something shifted. Subtle, but irreversible. 2 sides, 2 powers, meeting for the first time. And already, they weren't agreeing. Chen straightened slightly, his voice steady. We're here to explore, to make contact. not to surrender control of our vessel. Another pause, longer this time. Zea's expression hardened. You are now within council space, he said. Our laws apply. Chen glanced briefly at his tactical display. The 12 ships had moved. Closer, tighter formation, more aggressive positioning. He looked back at the screen. We don't recognize your authority. Silence. Heavy, unavoidable. And just like that, first contact became something else. Not diplomacy, not cooperation, but conflict. The silence between them stretched. Not empty, charged. Captain Z's eyes shifted slightly, clearly reading something off-screen, likely his tactical display. The formation had tightened. The trap was closing. When he spoke again, the diplomacy was gone. Human vessel, he said, voice sharper now. You will submit to inspection immediately. No greeting, no courtesy, just authority. On the Ragnarok's bridge, no one reacted outwardly, but everyone felt it. That shift, Chen remained still. We've already answered that, he said calmly. Ze's upper arms moved slightly, a restrained sign of agitation. You are in violation of council law. Chen didn't blink. We're not part of your council. That landed harder. Ze leaned forward just slightly. That is irrelevant. Another step closer to conflict. Behind Chen, Rodriguez spoke quietly, just loud enough. So, they've shifted formation again. Chen didn't look back. Status. Encirclement pattern, Rodriguez replied. Classic multi-angle assault positioning. They are setting up firing vectors. Kim added, distance closing. Slowly, but deliberately. Chen already knew. He could feel it. The pressure building. Back on the screen, Z's tone dropped. Cold now. You will lower your shields and prepare for boarding. There it was. The line. Chen exhaled softly. I don't think you understand the situation, he said. A pause. We're not boarding your ship, Z replied. You misunderstand, Chen said evenly. We're not surrendering ours. That was it. The final break. For a brief moment, neither side spoke. Two captains. Two decisions. Only one outcome. Z's expression hardened completely. You leave me no choice. The transmission cut. The screen snapped back to the starfield. Silence hit the bridge. Then, multiple weapon locks detected. Rodriguez snapped. Here we go, Kim muttered under her breath. Chen didn't move. Report. Rodriguez's hands moved rapidly over the controls. All 12 ships are targeting us. Energy levels rising. Fast. Shields. Chen asked. Already at maximum. The massive structure of the Ragnarok hummed faintly as its defensive system surged to full power. Layers upon layers of shielding activated, interlocking, overlapping, reinforcing. Built for exactly this moment. Chen stepped closer to the tactical display. 12 ships. Angles locked. Weapons primed. They think we're weak, Rodriguez said quietly. Chen nodded once. Of course they do. From their perspective, one ship. Surrounded. Outnumbered. Outmatched. That was their second mistake. Sir, Park said, voice tense. Incoming transmission. Same source. Chen didn't hesitate. Put it through. Z reappeared on screen. No pretense now. No diplomacy. Only command. You have 60 seconds, he said. Lower your shield and prepare for boarding, or we will take action. A countdown. A threat. A mistake. Chen stepped forward again, meeting his gaze. Captain Z, he said calmly, I strongly advise against that. Z's expression twisted slightly, something between anger and disbelief. You are one ship, he said, against 12. Chen tilted his head just slightly. You should reconsider your assumptions. Z's eyes narrowed. You are in no position to negotiate. Chen's voice didn't change. And you're in no position to understand what you're doing. A beat. That was the last chance. Z didn't take it. Time's up, he said. The transmission cut instantly, and a fraction of a second later. They are firing. Rodriguez shouted. The void exploded into light. Streams of plasma and particle beams ripped through space, converging on the Ragnarok from every angle. A perfect strike. A coordinated assault. Exactly as planned. On the alien side. But not here. The beam struck and vanished. The Ragnarok didn't move, didn't shake, didn't even react. Energy dispersed across its shields in smooth, controlled waves, like rain hitting glass. Rodriguez stared at his display. No damage. Kim blinked. Shield integrity, 98%. Silence. Chen watched the data for a moment, then nodded once. They've made their choice. He turned slightly toward tactical. Open a channel. Rodriguez hesitated for half a second, then complied. Zir reappeared. But this time, there was something different in his eyes. Confusion. Doubt. Impossible doubt. Our weapon should have disabled your shields, Zir said. Chen met his gaze. Calm. Unshaken. You've done enough, he said. A pause. This is your only warning. Zir's expression hardened again, clinging to what little certainty he had left. You're bluffing. Chen didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned slightly, toward Rodriguez. Target the lead vessel. Rodriguez's eyes widened just a fraction. So, with what system? Chen's answer was quiet, almost casual. Point defense turret 7. A beat. Even Rodriguez hesitated. That wasn't a main weapon. That wasn't even a secondary system. That was... Single shot, Chen added. Silence fell across the bridge. Because now, everything was about to change. Target locked. Rodriguez said quietly. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the constant hum of the ship felt distant. On the main display, the lead Council cruiser held position, its weapons still glowing from the previous attack, its shields fully engaged, its crew no doubt preparing for another strike. Confident, certain, untouchable. Chen didn't look at it. He didn't need to. Fire. One word. That was all. There was no dramatic charge-up, no massive surge of power, no warning. Just a single flash. A thin beam of coherent light lanced out from the Ragnarok. Clean, precise, almost effortless. It crossed the distance in an instant and touched the cruiser. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then, the ship vanished. Not exploded. Not shattered. Gone. One moment it existed. The next, it was a cloud of expanding particles, glowing briefly before fading into the darkness. No debris. No wreckage. No survivors. Just absence. Silence slammed into the bridge. Every display updated at once. Target. Eliminated. Rodriguez stared at his screen. Direct hit. Kim's voice came out almost as a whisper. That was a point defense turret. No one corrected her, because everyone knew. Those systems were designed to intercept missiles. Fighters. Small targets. Not capital ships. Not something the size of a Council cruiser. And yet, it was gone. Completely. Chen remained still, his expression unchanged. Open a channel. No hesitation this time. Zay appeared instantly, but he wasn't the same. The controlled authority was gone, replaced by something raw, something human. Shock. What did you do? His voice faltered. Behind him, chaos erupted on the alien bridge. Officers moving, alarms flashing, data flooding in faster than they could process. Chen answered calmly. That was a point defense system. A pause, designed for small threats. Zay just stayed, trying to understand, trying to reject what he had just seen. That's impossible, he whispered. Chen tilted his head slightly. Would you like to see what our actual weapons can do? Silence. Heavy. Crushing. On the tactical display, the remaining 11 ships had stopped moving, stopped firing, stopped everything. Frozen. Because now, they understood. This wasn't a fight. It never had been. Zay's voice came back, weaker now. You destroyed a cruiser with a secondary system. Chen didn't respond, because he didn't need to. The truth was already there. Zay looked off-screen again, likely at the empty space where his ship had been. Gone. Instantly. Without resistance. Without meaning. His voice dropped. We were wrong. On the Ragnarok, No one celebrated. No cheers. No relief. Just quiet focus. Because this was expected. Chen stepped forward slightly. You attacked a peaceful vessel, he said. A pause. We responded with minimal force. That word echoed. Minimal. Zhe flinched slightly. Minimal had erased one of his ships. What would Maximum do? Behind him, the remaining council vessels began to shift. Not forward, not aggressive. Back. Slowly at first. Then faster. Retreat. Rodriguez glanced at Chen. They are pulling back. Chen nodded once. Let them. Zhe looked back at the screen, something like fear settling in fully now. What are you? The question wasn't official. It wasn't diplomatic. It was personal. Chen answered the same way. Calm. Simple. We're human. Silence followed, long enough for the meaning to settle. Then, the transmission cut. On the display, the 11 remaining ships turned fully away, their engines flaring as they fled into the darkness. No formation. No coordination. Just escape. Rodriguez exhaled slowly. One shot. Kim shook her head slightly. They thought we were outmatched. Chen looked back at the stars. They weren't wrong. A pause. They just misunderstood how much. Behind them, the void returned to silence. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one carried weight, meaning, consequences, because somewhere out there, the survivors were already spreading the truth, and the galaxy was about to learn something new, something it had never faced before. Humanity had arrived. The emergency chamber on Council Prime had never been this loud. Voices overlapped. Data streams flooded every display. Dozens of species, each representing worlds, fleets, entire civilizations, argued all at once. And at the center of it, the recording played again, and again, and again. A single moment, looped endlessly. A council cruiser, erased. High Counselor Vila stood at the head of the chamber, her crystalline form shimmering under the harsh light of the holographic display. Pause. The recording froze. The human ship loomed on screen. Massive, silent, unmoving. Opposite it, the now vanished cruiser. Vila's voice resonated across the chamber. Explain this. No one answered immediately, because no one could. Finally, Admiral Thexa stepped forward, activating his personal display. I've analyzed the energy signature, he said, his voice tight. It doesn't match any known weapon system. A murmur spread through the chamber. That's not possible, one representative snapped. All weapon technologies are documented. Not this one, Thexa replied. He expanded the data. Waveforms, impact patterns, energy dispersion. What you're seeing, he continued, is complete molecular disruption achieved in a single, focused discharge. Silence fell, because that meant one thing. There was no defense. Dr. Yathra, the Council's chief science advisor, spoke next, her tone more unsettled than anyone had ever heard. Our shields wouldn't have lasted any longer than that cruiser's. That hit harder than the destruction itself, because the Council's entire power, their authority, their control, was built on one idea: superiority, technological superiority, military superiority, absolute dominance. And in a single moment, that illusion had shattered. What do we know about the species? Vila demanded. Thexa brought up a new display. Origin system identified. They call it Sol. The map expanded. A single star system, multiple inhabited worlds. Primary population, approximately 8 billion on their home planet alone. A ripple of unease moved through the chamber. That's larger than most member species, someone whispered. It gets worse, Thexa continued. The display shifted again. Industrial output, energy readings, fleet signatures, long-range scans show massive infrastructure, orbital shipyards, mining networks, energy production at levels exceeding council averages by a factor of 20. This time, no one spoke, because now it wasn't just about one ship. It was about scale. How many ships like the one we encountered? Vila asked. Thexa hesitated, then answered. Conservative estimate, 12. A pause. Possibly more. The chamber erupted. 12. That's impossible. No single species could build. Order. Vila's voice cut through everything. Silence returned, but it was fragile now, unstable, afraid. Dr. Yathra moved forward, her display shifting again. These humans developed differently, she said. Most civilizations, once they achieve space travel, shift toward culture, philosophy, efficiency. She paused. These didn't. The image zoomed in on the human ship. They optimized for power. Another silence, heavier this time. Why? Someone asked. No one answered, because the answer was becoming obvious. Survival, control, dominance, the same path the Council had taken. Long ago, they are already moving. A communications officer suddenly called out. All eyes turned. Multiple reports from border sectors. Human vessels detected everywhere. The main display filled with markers. Dozens of them. Spreading. Systematically. They are not attacking, the officer continued. They are scanning, mapping, observing. Thex's expression darkened. Military reconnaissance. Vila's form flickered. They are preparing. For war? Someone asked. Thexa shook his head slowly. No. A pause. For control. That was worse, because war could be fought. This was something else. They are positioning themselves across our space without resistance, Yathra added. Our patrols can't engage. They can't even get close. They are showing us something, Thexa said quietly. Vila turned toward him. What? The Admiral met her gaze. That they can go anywhere, anytime, and we can't stop them. Silence fell again. But this time, it wasn't confusion. It was realization. The balance of power had shifted. Not gradually, not over time. Instantly. And there was nothing they could do to reverse it. A new signal suddenly appeared on the central display. Different from the others. Clear, direct, intentional. Incoming transmission, the officer said. Vila straightened. Put it through. The screen flickered, and a human appeared. Calm, composed, unafraid. Greetings, Galactic Council. The figure said, I am Admiral Saracen. A pause. I believe we need to talk. No one in the chamber moved. No one spoke. Because for the first time in 10,000 years, the Council wasn't in control of the conversation anymore. The chamber held its breath. On the central display, the human admiral stood perfectly still, hand behind her back, posture relaxed, expression unreadable. No fear, no hesitation, no urgency, as if she already knew how this would end. High Counselor Vila stepped forward, her crystalline form catching the light as it shifted colors. You have violated Council space, she said, her voice controlled, but strained beneath the surface. Your ships have entered our territory without authorization. The human didn't react. Instead, a faint smile. Have we? Admiral Chen replied calmly. A pause. By whose authority? That question hit harder than any weapon. Vila's form flickered. The authority of the Galactic Council, she said. 10,000 years of governance. Peace. Stability. Chen nodded slightly. Impressive. Another pause. Then, who gave you that authority? Silence, because there was no clean answer. The Council had taken it. Long ago, through power, through superiority, through the same method now standing in front of them. You enforced it, Chen continued, just like every dominant power in history. Her tone didn't change. But now, there's another one. A ripple moved through the chamber. Anger, fear, denial. Admiral Thexa stepped forward. Are you declaring war on the Galactic Council? Chen shook her head. War implies both sides have a chance. The words landed like a shockwave. We're not here to destroy you, she continued. We're here to exist on our own terms. She stepped slightly closer to the display. Humanity will expand, explore, protect its interests. Her eyes moved across the chamber. And we will not be governed by an authority we never agreed to. Vila's voice sharpened. You cannot simply ignore galactic law. Chen tilted her head slightly. You mean your law? Another pause. We don't recognize it. That was the moment, the final break. Everything the council had built, every rule, every system, every assumption, no longer universal, no longer absolute. What do you want? Vila asked finally. Chen answered immediately. Coexistence. The word echoed through the chamber. Humanity governs its space. You govern yours. A beat. We don't interfere with you. You don't interfere with us. Simple, clean, terrifying. And if we refuse? Thexa asked. Chen's expression didn't change, but something behind it did. Then you'll force us to respond. A pause. And I don't think you want to see what that looks like. No one doubted it. Not anymore. The recording of the destroyed cruiser still hovered behind her. A reminder, a warning, a promise. Dr. Yathra stepped forward slowly. Our analysis suggests, she hesitated, your fleet is significantly larger than what we encountered. Chen didn't deny it. Correct. How large? Vila asked. A brief pause. Then, large enough. That was worse than any number, because it meant there was no limit they could rely on, no ceiling, no end. The chamber fell silent again. But this time, it wasn't fear alone. It was acceptance. The council had two choices: fight and risk annihilation, or adapt and survive. Vila looked around the chamber, at the representatives of hundreds of species, at the faces that once looked to her for certainty, for control, for answers. Now, they looked uncertain, because for the first time in 10,000 years, the council wasn't the strongest power in the galaxy, and everyone knew it. Chen's voice cut through the silence one last time. We're not your enemy. A pause. But we're not your subjects either. The transmission ended. Just like that. No flourish. No threat. Just finality. The chamber remained still long after the screen went dark, because nothing needed to be said. The message was clear. The era of unquestioned council dominance was over, and somewhere, far beyond their reach, human ships moved silently through the stars, not invading, not conquering, but expanding, claiming their place, on their own terms. And across the galaxy, systems began to watch, to question, to choose, because for the first time, there was an alternative, a new power, a new order, a new future, and it had already begun.